just getting back on there. Hanging on, Andreas Schillinger, number 6, second man up the line. He's probably hoping that this man can come back. You keep an eye out for him now.
This is Marcus Berghardt crashing just a few moments ago. Long, hard sector.
He looks okay. He looks as though he's concentrating. Get himself back in that group quickly, as quick as you can.
Back to the front.
Yeah, but look who's on the front. Oh no, it's not. It looked like I thought it was Wout van Aert, but no,
Mike
he's in here somewhere.
The Jumbo rider in yellow on the right-hand side of the road that's Yves Lampaert from De Kooning. De Kooning has not put a foot wrong so far in this year's Paris-Roubaix. Very powerful squad with riding great so far. This is our lone leader, but only a few moments advantage over the field. Done with sector 15, 14 to go. Finale of Paris-Roubaix has begun in earnest. Yves Lampaert going to the front. Stijn Vandenberg, AG2R in the brown shoulder jersey. But Sepp van Mark from EF trying to perhaps to replicate his teammates' victory.
So consistent.
In the Tour of Flanders, the second monument of the year. And EF has been having a great Paris-Roubaix so far. That Lars Bohm there at the back, coming back into the field from a mechanical.
I notice here that, in fact, as we span the numbers earlier, no sign of number 46. And that was Taylor Phinney. And the message coming now from the team is the team missed him standing on the roadside, apparently, and he is out of Paris-Roubaix. That's really pretty sad because he had such a great ride last year, Taylor Phinney. As we're looking here at Wesley Creeder, the man who is riding at the front now. Earlier today, Taylor Phinney did post saying that he was riding in the memory of Paul Sherwin, saying how much he missed Paul, as we all do, and but no luck to put him into the group today. So, well, thanks for the memories indeed for my co-commentator over those 33 years, Paul Sherwin, who sadly passed away before Christmas. So that's the situation at the moment. Some 70 riders chasing one man, 67 kilometers to go. 12 seconds the gap. He's a very brave boy, Wesley Creeder, and quite clearly the peloton not really concerning themselves just now. They're leaving him out there by himself, heading towards sector 14. It's 2.9 kilometers away at Berry à Auchy, and it's 1.4 kilometers. 3-star rating in the difficult stakes. Poor old Alexander Kristoff had his problems today with his bike and never rejoined the big group in the end. Hats off to Wesley Creeder here, setting the pace. Little split in the peloton, Bob. It's always a worry if somebody left the door open.
10-second advantage for our lone leader. A little bit of a respite here for the peloton on a smooth section of cobbles. Katusha's had a pretty solid Paris-Roubaix so far, and sending a man up the road to close the gap down to Crater.
Well, I'll tell you what, that's a nice little attack there by Team Katusha. And it looks to me like it's Politz himself who's gone. We're looking at the leaders here now. They've just got clear, and it is Philippe Gilbert, the former world champion, who's headed up the attack here. And he's followed by one of the favourites in Niels Pollitt. But we could put Gilbert in the same bracket as well right now. And we've got still the original breakaway here, Creeder. And Selick is the other rider.
Sector 14, Philippe Gilbert hits it first. A 3-star sector, swinging off to the smoother section, a little bit more dangerous for flats on the left-hand side of the road. Trek, the team of John Degenkolb, he is third-wheeled, trying to do the damage control over this very dangerous breakaway by Philippe Gilbert. 64 and change kilometers to go. But one of the most powerful riders in all of professional cycling from the De Kooning squad off the front in the form of Philippe Gilbert.
Well, that's spread the peloton chasing wheels here. 34 kilometers covered and a total of 54.5 is the days on the menu of cobblestones. And now it's Trek on the right here, and Gilbert's team on the left trying to back them off, in particular Peter Sagan in the white jersey on the left here. This is a fantastic move for Philippe Gilbert. He's approaching 37 years of age, this man, and he's been a little bit down on form, but he's pulling off a terrific move here with a great move with 3 riders, and particularly with Niels Pollitt on his wheel. 2 men who could go the distance.
Rudiger Selig is the Bora rider, teammates of Peter Sagan, and the Wanty man who was caught by Gilbert just before this sector of cobbles. Crater having a tough time staying in that group. Peter Sagan 4th wheel in that white jersey and black helmet, and now on the wheel of John Degenkolb, who has moved into 2nd position. Very tough sector, and the alarm bells ringing in the field, chasing Philippe Gilbert. His advantage closing in on 20 seconds after this sector number 14 of cobbles.
Well, he's a classics rider, he's a stage race rider. Gilbert is in his absolute situation where he could actually win this race from this position, and he's well aware of it. In fact, it's proving a little bit too hard for Wesley Creeder here, who started the whole thing. He's found he's been joined by 3 express trains here. 15 seconds the gap, 63 kilometres, that's all to go. Still plenty of cobblestones to come, of course. We're looking for sector 13. We count down to 1. Peter Sagan in 2nd wheel must be a little bit confused right now, because you've got a teammate in Rudiger Selig up front. So he's not going to drive the chase. He's watching everybody. In fact, 2 teammates blocking off there.
Well, this is an ideal situation for De Koenig. They still have Yves Lampaert and Zdeněk Štýbar in this group, and Tim de Klerk. So
absolutely perfect, Bob.
Yeah, and they have Philippe Gilbert off the front now, so they can just follow the wheels until Gilbert is caught. Ophides.
What a turn up for the books it would be if this breakaway stayed away. Just, it's all been about hard work, the whole race today. It really has. Just looking down here on Laporte, I think it is.
Christophe Laporte.
Christophe Laporte, yeah.
Yes, indeed. And the white
sector
and red
13 next up.
Chased by Stein Vandenberg. One team missing out is definitely AG2R. Let's see how much firepower they have left to do the chasing. Matteo Trentini's had a very active Paris-Roubaix. Been in the moves and now near the front.
So the counterattacks continue. Nearly 63 kilometres left to ride, but the gap is opening. It's 22 seconds now. Christophe Laporte here. Cofidis have had a good ride. They are the team of Northern France, the region this race passes through. Their sponsor is based here. And so they've been very, very prominent throughout the race. But they haven't got a man in that 4-man group up front.
Mads Schmidt is the
it's 3-man now, I think.
Yeah, 3 guys now. Crater dropped. And Mads Schmidt, the teammate of Niels Pollitt, on the front of the field, just slowing things down. Trek is on the back foot. They're going to have to do some chasing to keep John Degenkolb in contention. So brilliant riding by both the Katusha and the De Koenig squad at this point in Paris-Roubaix. Still a long ways to go, but Philippe Gilbert is going to make it very difficult for the chasers.
The big Niels Pollitt gets into his time trial style and drives it through the back streets here as we head to the sector 13 of the cobbles.
Well, you're licking your chops if you're Rudiger Selig, the man from Bora, on the back.
Well, what do you do? I mean, what would be the tactics of Selig? It looks to me as though he's not actually driving this breakaway, he's watching them.
Well, you have the defending champion,
yes,
and 3-time world champion and maybe best man for the classics in the world at the moment in your team in the form of Peter Sagan. You sit on as long as they allow you to. So Pollitt and Gilbert doing the tempo, and Selig just sitting on. So great riding by Rudiger Selig.
That's Crater returned to the fold there, the man that started the trouble. 51.
Enviable
is
spot for Selig here at the back of the breakaway.
Is Pollitt in the middle, Selig at the back, and Philippe Gilbert knows exactly what he's created here. He's a member of the famous Wolf Pack. Oh, an old bunny hop over the center of that roundabout.
Piece of cake nowadays for the riders in the professional peloton. They see roundabouts about every mile on every race course throughout the year. Now they're just breeze right through them generally.
This is Alexis Gougard of AG2R. He's been in action all day today, been in the breakaway. He's seen the breakaway build around him to a huge peloton. Still willing to work in that group. Now the teammates here of Arnaud Demar also prepared to try and shut this breakaway down. You can't say they're not trying to make it all work out for them.
Looks like they're sending a man, trying to close this 18-second disadvantage. That's not the call that I would make. I would have him stay at the front of the field and do hard tempo. And it's going to be surprising if he can get across. There's Matteo Trentin moving into second position. Stein Vandenberg from AG2R still doing tempo. The Trek Segafredo teammates of John Degenkolb also there. So a long ways to go, but a very powerful and dangerous three-man move off the front. And there they are. You can see them coming through the crowd. Niels Paulett on the front.
Whoa, and the peloton swinging round in the track of the motorbikes there. That is going to be a coming together, I think. The fact that two of the race favourites have got themselves into this front move. Rudiger Selig hasn't helped at all. He's been along as what we call the ticket collector, the man who just sits and watches, observes. And they come off the back of sector 14. 58 kilometers left to go.
A little bit more reasonable tactic here now being played by the Groupama team. Arnaud Demar there, the next man in the red, white, and blue jersey, looking very strong and right in front of this chase group.
Demar is about 8 riders down the pack there, while it's his teammate Olivier Legac who has been setting the pace there to try and close it down.
Sepp Van Mark still riding well for
This
EF.
looks like Bosenhagen, is it? No, it's Janssen van Rensburg. Reini Janssen van Rensburg. He's done well to hold in here, but he's struggling a little bit now. Big effort now to get back on the tail as we got to the smooth road once more, heading towards sector 13. Up with the leaders again, 3 versus that huge peloton. Selig, Pollitt, Gilbert. Selig is along for the ride. He's in the command of Peter Sagan. He's just watching. He's a spoiler up here. And the other two willing to help each other and fight it out to the finish if that's the way it's going to be. The velodrome steadily filling up with spectators, and there are those who are enjoying themselves. You'd have thought they'd have watched the race go by, but there we are.
They might have just missed it, actually.
3.5 kilometers, the 4-star sector now at Oshi. This is enough to strike fear in the hearts of some, and we're only 3.5 kilometers from it. Sector number 12.
Philippe Gilbert making a brilliant attack just a few kilometers ago with Niels Paulett. And a slight advantage. These are some of the chasers trying to get back on terms.
Even the good road looks a bit rough here.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Mads Pedersen trying to stay in the front group, having a tough time.
In the break earlier on today, he's used a lot of energy.
Luke Rowe from Team Sky, 22-second disadvantage to the 3 men in front, joined by a Bahrain man. This is Philippe Gilbert on the front of the breakaway, and Luke Rowe chasing now for Team Sky. Team Sky maybe got tired of chasing the breakaways, and now they're going to try to close the gap with Luke Rowe himself.
Well, they've built 5 seconds on the peloton at the moment, and Luke Rowe recovered well from that technical problem he had about half an hour ago. Got back in the race.
Trentin swinging through that corner. Yves Lampaert, second wheel there. A lot of De Koenig men still in the front group. Bahrain, this is a little counter move.
Yeah, it's a good one too. 5 riders. As 5 riders try to chase, they're 15 seconds behind as a spread of 20 seconds over the field. 56 kilometers, that's not very far left to ride. This is Pollitt. See the face of Gilbert. He's got so much mud on his face, it looks as though he's grown a beard.
Niels Paulett has had a pretty spectacular Paris-Roubaix so far.
He's had a fantastic Paris-Roubaix. He hasn't missed a move yet. Now he's trying to make one.
Philippe Gilbert, a couple years ago, similar circumstance, went for a long in the Tour of Flanders, one of the other monuments on the season. Long solo. but translated to a huge win.
Yeah.
Philippe Gilbert's dream is to win all the monuments. He's got 3 out of 5, and Paris-Roubaix is one of the ones that's missing on his list of victories. He might be able to, if the circumstances work out, win Paris-Roubaix. How amazing would that be? He's had a great career, world champion. He's won Flanders. He's won Liège. He's won, a little bit of a tricky roundabout there for the field.
Yes.
And Philippe Gilbert now and the de Koninck squad gone off the boil in the last couple of classics, including Gent-Wevelgem and the Ronde van Vlaanderen, taken out by Alberto Bettiol and Alexander Kristoff, neither of whom are in contention. Bettiol because he didn't start, and Alexander Kristoff because of a couple of mechanicals earlier, a long way down. Here's the chase. Jumbo Visma chasing, and a really dramatic set of circumstances for the team leader, Wout van Aert, throughout Paris-Roubaix. And we haven't seen him recently. He was closing back to the main group. We'll have to try to get an update on him. Peter Sagan closing that little acceleration himself, but his teammate up the front, third wheel, and hasn't had to do any work.
Yeah, Lampert's on the wheel there of Peter Sagan. And it looks as though Seliger would like our camera bike a little bit further ahead. Not surprisingly, because he's waiting for the arrival of Peter Sagan up in that leading group. And they've got themselves a little split on the field just at this moment in time.
So this is a panic for that man in the orange jersey with the gold helmet. That's Greg van Avermaet. No teammates in sight. And Peter Sagan off the front with a little bit of an advantage. This is the counter move.
So we're about to enter Sector 12 here. We still have 3 leaders. Yes, Philippe Gilbert, Niels Pollitt and Rudiger Selig, who hasn't come to the front at all. He is waiting to see the arrival of Peter Sagan. Well, Sagan's still in the group and still doing a little bit of work. Last time we saw there was a small chase group just ahead of the peloton, including Luke Rowe of Team Sky. 37 kilometers have been covered on the Pavé. There is Sagan riding himself now to try and reach his teammate up front.
25-second disadvantage for Sagan. The pressure is on now. Here's a panic from the peloton. Peter Sagan making his move to defend his title from last year. John Degenkolb from Trek trying to close that gap down. De Koninck also in the front group with Gilbert, but Peter Sagan now attacking from the field.
Look at Gilbert has taken the group here in the lead, and they've got rid of Seliger. The pressure from Gilbert has got rid of Seliger. His job was to stay there till Sagan arrived. Sagan is here in the second group, driving also as close as he can to that grass line to avoid the cobbles themselves. That is tremendous riding by Sagan. He's watched and he's waited. He's taken a couple of big boys with him though. Fourth wheel there is Lampert's, and looking very, very good at the moment, and also getting across there from Education First, the ever-present man in pink, Sepp van Mark in third place. He's always a big danger.
And in yellow, that is the Jumbo Visma man, Wout van Aert, after incredible bad luck throughout the day, including 2 bike changes and a crash. He's on the wheel of Peter Sagan, and right in the front where he needs to be. Sepp van Mark riding well. Selig dropped, but it wouldn't be surprising to me if the team hadn't called him back out of the break to help Peter Sagan get back to Philippe Gilbert and Niels Pollitt, our 2 leaders.
This is Pollitt, and Pollitt really fighting to hold on to a flying Philippe Gilbert. He's really piling the pressure on. He knows the Roubaix route as well as anybody in this bike race, and the Belgian is a great classics rider. He happens to be on the most successful team again of the year so far as well. It's a new team by name, same team by makeup. There is Peter Sagan in the white, and there is Van Aert going over the top of him first, who spent most of his life chasing on the cobbles today. Now he's driving on the cobbles.
Well, that'll be a great ally for Peter Sagan if he can stay on the wheel. Wout van Aert still flying. Really amazing ride. And Sepp van Mark in the pink and blue of EF, right on the wheel with Yves Lampaert, the champion of Belgium, and the teammate of that man in the blue in the front, Philippe Gilbert.
And Pollitt is in difficulty. He's really losing contact here with Gilbert. He would do better now to pick up the 4 behind him, because therefore the biggest names in this bike race are going towards the front. I don't know if Gilbert is remotely aware of the chase he's caused behind, but I have a feeling that might be the split that's going to decide this race. He's handling these cobblestones like he should with the experience he has. No problem whatsoever.
Clear run at the cobbles, no visibility issues for Philippe Gilbert, and absolutely scorching the stones at the moment and putting panic into the chasers. Wow. Van Aert, Sagan, Van Mark, and Lampard almost catching Niels Paulin. And you're right, Phil. Paulin sitting up prudently, grabbing a water bottle and waiting for the chasers.
Makes sense.
Knew he couldn't stay on the wheel of Philippe Gilbert. That man in blue. Woo! Gilbert flying across the cobbles. 50 Ks to go.
So we're heading towards 50 kilometers from the finish. One of Belgium's most popular bike riders, Philippe Gilbert, is alone in front. Just looking at the faces here, I think they might realise if they don't nail that four-man chase group there that's picking up Pollitt very, very quickly, they won't see them again.
Van Avermaet coming into the screen. He's a bit on the back foot now. He's got to close this gap down to Peter Sagan and Niels Paulin, Sepp Van Mark, and Wout van Aert. Surprised to see that Sepp Van Mark reluctant to pull through. One man in the front now. That is Philippe Gilbert and a very strong chase group. There he is. He hasn't even taken off his thermal jacket yet.
I don't blame him. It's still only about 7 degrees Celsius here at the moment. It has hardly warmed all day. 8 seconds to the group. Sagan. Gilbert might have company very soon. The peloton, such as it is, 23 seconds back. This is the peloton.
Van Avermaet missing out along with John Degenkolb, so they will be with their teammates. And Trentin also. Trentin doing a hard turn at the front, trying to close the gap down to Peter Sagan's group just in front of him.
It's got to happen now as we head towards Sector 11. That comes in 1.4 kilometers. Mons-en-Pévèle is where we're headed, and it's 3 kilometers long, that, and it's a black section. It's 5 stars, and that is where the race could completely explode now. Gilbert will be aware these boys are coming now. He must be, and it might make common sense to just hang on for a moment longer before going again. The torn shorts of Wout van Aert there, having fallen so many times today and got back and caught the leaders again. He's had a remarkable performance.
Marc Sarraud, the Groupama man in red, white, and blue, making this group. Impressive riding.
Philippe Gilbert is just about holding them off at the moment. 49 kilometers still to ride. Gilbert on his radio there. He'll know there's a little group coming up, including Peter Sagan. Marc Sarraud has got in there too. Sepp Van Mark, Niels Paulin went back from Gilbert. He's number 51. He's going back to his side, slowly but surely at the moment.
Christophe Laporte is there for Cofidis in the white and red. And Wout van Aert miraculously in this group. Yves Lampaert, he's the champion of Belgium. He's the teammate of Philippe Gilbert. So impressive riding by De Koenig throughout Paris-Roubaix today, and by the defending champion Peter Sagan in the white jersey with the black helmet there. Just closing the gap now down to Philippe Gilbert.
Well, Gilbert looks over his shoulder now. He will see his teammate, the champion of Belgium, making progress in this group. Sagan has watched every move today. He had a little bit of a rough ride early on, but he corrected it and got back to the leading group. Now he's dictating affairs. He's looking at last like the Peter Sagan that we've come to love and know. We are on to Sector 11 now. We could be looking at the winner from this group by the end of this day. 48 kilometers to go, 30 miles left to ride. 11 sectors of pavé to come.
Let's see how much commitment Peter Sagan has to this particular stretch of cobbles.
This is a rough one, Bob.
It is. It's a very tough. 5 stars. Mons-en-Pévèle. It's an absolute legend of stretch of road. 3 kilometers long. And a very tough stretch. Here's the chase group led by the Astana squad at the moment. But Peter Sagan, see how much energy he puts in that. 2 De Koenig riders are with him. He doesn't want to do too much work with those guys sitting on his wheel and giving them the advantage.
This is a huge chase group. It was 70 strong as a group, and then slowly but surely Gilbert attacked. They whittled it down, And it's now a situation as we look here to Christophe Laporte, and he's cracked in the front group.
Was in the break, now is getting dropped just like that. Also having trouble is Sarro from the Groupama team. So those two squads now without a rider in the breakaway, they'll have to come to the front and start chasing. Niels Pollitt riding well and matching the acceleration of Sagan and Wout van Aert. Wout van Aert in the yellow jersey there. What an unbelievable
I'll tell you what,
ride
Sarro
he's
is on form too. He's won 3 races this year, including one this month here in mid-France, Route Adélie. And so he's tried his legs, and it looks as though the cobbles are proving harder than his legs right now.
Well, this section just goes on and on and on. It's one of the toughest sections coming late in the race. Here is the big peloton. This rider's been yo-yoing off the front and the back. Nico Dents.
He's had a great ride. He was involved in a crash with Peter Sagan, but he got himself back into that group. Sagan's moved forward. There he is, number 3 wheel. Yves Lampaert, the champion of Belgium, riding a great race and being drawn towards his country. He knows half the spectators are Belgian. They'll recognize the flag wrapped around him as a racing jersey.
This will be a little bit complicated for De Kooning. And I think Philippe Gilbert is asked.
Oh, come on, steady on, Peter. Oh, he wrestled with that one, and in the middle of the handlebars too.
And that's the danger of going off to the side of the cobbles, is that you don't know exactly what's around every corner, and it could be something you can't overcome. And Peter Sagan, one of the best bike handlers in the sport of cycling, was able to do that, but that would have been a challenge for just about anybody else. Look at how rough these stones are.
6 riders here, and in all honesty, 6 quality riders. It's going to be an incredibly tough chase to bring them back. The race realizes the situation, but I'm not sure anymore they have the power. He took that corner wide as well. He almost clipped the crowd, Peter Sagan, as Yves Lampaert, the champion of Belgium, piles the pressure on. Belgians are at home on cobblestones. The country's full of them. Green
light for Gilbert and Lampaert to just absolutely go as flat out as they can. I want to say that's John Degenkolb from the Trek squad. He knows what the danger is right now. 38-second disadvantage, trying to get across to our leaders, including Peter Sagan and Philippe Gilbert. And one of the teammates, I wouldn't bet that's Zdenek Štibar on the wheel of John Degenkolb chasing these 5 men off the front. 35-second advantage, but Degenkolb closing that gap down now.
Au revoir, la prochaine, to the next time for Mons-en-Pévèle as we race on towards Sector 10 now. The advantage is there, but it's not great at the moment.
Sarro being picked up by the chasers.
He's gone.
He knew the move, but just didn't have the legs to stay with Gilbert and Sagan and Pollitt.
Well, they try every move that they can at the moment. They throw everything they've got into it, and if it doesn't work, you go back to the pack. And this is a considerably large chasing group today. Spread is 34 seconds. They're coming off Mons-en-Pévèle now as we continue to race on to the next one, which is Mérigny.
Well, I think that the 2 De Kooning riders in the front, Gilbert and Lampaert, will get plenty of cooperation from the other men, including Peter Sagan and Niels Pollitt. So fantastic riding, and De Kooning has not missed a step so far in Paris-Roubaix. I want to say that's Jasper Stuyven from the Trek squad. Now he could do some serious damage for John Degenkolb.
It certainly looks like him.
Yeah, to catch our leaders. The next sector in 2.5 Ks, only 2 stars. So the 5 men in the front should be able, 6 men, excuse me, be able to breeze right across that. Wout van Aert.
These boys know what they've achieved now, and they're going to all work together. Look at this. All 6 riders here helping each other. Last year's winner, Peter Sagan, is in the leading group. But will he win back-to-back Paris-Roubaix? Just looking at the face of Peter Sagan, this guy should be a card player, because you never can see what he's thinking. You can never see what he's feeling like. He always has that same crouch position, and you can't see his eyes, of course, because of the sunglasses. There's a little bit of sun today, but basically it's a cold early spring day when normally it's much warmer. The stripes of the world champion he's been 3 times on the cuffs of his racing jersey, the bands around his chest of the current champion of Slovakia. The champion of Belgium up on his inside there, Yves Lampert's Phil Gilbert, Lampert's teammate, just going down the other way for the moment. We switch back to the chase group. And again, still trying to get Arnaud Demar back into this race, because the Frenchman knows if he could get to the leaders on Paris-Roubaix on the velodrome, he would probably have the best chance of victory. A little bit more skillful than many on the bank track. And not to say he is a man of the north as well, which is where we are. Very overcast at the stadium, but the crowd is now quite enormous. They've been out on the course, they've jumped the motorway, freeway, and they've got themselves to the velodrome. They're all in situ, enjoying big, big screenshots, the same pictures that you are seeing at home. 43 kilometers left to ride, but still there is 10 sectors of pavé. Looking down there, the bridge isn't made yet. This is the actual group trying to bridge the gap still to 6 riders. We've had a counter-attack from the group, but we're not getting across just yet. The spread is still 40 seconds to Pollitt, Sagan, Van Mark, Wout van Aert and Yves Lampert. There they are, 6 of them. 6 very solid men with big reputations. 6 very dangerous men to the rest of the peloton here in the 117th running of Paris-Roubaix. Number 41 just tagged on the back of the race. That's Sepp Van Mark. We call him the man who almost does, because he has had so many seconds, thirds, fourths, fifths, but he hasn't landed the big win yet. But after the success of Education First last week in the Tour de Flanders with Bettiol, who isn't here, it would be an amazing double for the American team if they were to get the win of the 2 top races of the spring season. Tour de Flanders last week, Paris-Roubaix today. Now it's the golden man, the helmet of the Olympic champion, Greg Van Avermaet. He has sensed that this breakaway is possibly going to stay out there, and the only way to get in this race is to chase them down. It's left to him now to drive. Looks over to see who's going to come with him, but he's looking over at 2 teammates of men in the front group. There's no help there, Greg.
Van Avermaet in a pretty desperate situation, 41 seconds disadvantage on our 6 leaders. Yves Lampart given the green light by Philippe Gilbert to do as much tempo as he can.
Well, they're off sector 10, Bob, and the 9 sectors are left. There's still a black one to come, of course. The Carrefour de l'Arbre still a little way away. Could be very decisive today. These boys have not closed in. In fact, they've lost a little bit, and they're sensing it.
Obama on the front of the chase here. That's for Arnaud Demar, who presumably is in this group.
He is.
And if it comes down to a sprint, a great chance to win. So if I'm not mistaken, that's Stefan Kung, his teammate. And Greg Van Avermaet, second wheel in a really desperate situation. 50 seconds now. That is John Degenkolb at the back of the chase group. Cofidis rider going on the attack. Maybe not the most prudent thing to do with a 55-second disadvantage to 6 of the most powerful riders in bike racing off the front. But we'll see how that works out for the Cofidis men. Peter Sagan making a brilliant attack when the pace had been so high for so long. Oliver Naesen missing out, and Greg Van Avermaet also missing out. A very powerful breakaway. Philippe Gilbert was the man that really did the damage for the Deceuninck squad, joined by his teammate Yves Lampart and a couple of Deceuninck men in the chase group to discourage anybody trying to do the tempo. They're going to have to drag some of Philippe Gilbert's teammates with him.
Sector 9, Pont Thibault, 1.4 kilometers in length. The gap has been rounded up. It's now 1 minute advantage for the 6 front runners, and the field is beginning to show signs of getting into a little bit of panic. We've now covered 43 of the 54.5 kilometers. The gap has gone up to 1 minute and 2 seconds. The elastic is stretching and is getting very taut.
Headwind now hitting the riders that are left in the front of Paris-Roubaix, and that might spell doom for the chasers. Very discouraging to come to the front and then have a big headwind. Advantage to these men in the front, including Peter Sagan. Philippe Gilbert second wheel, third wheel, Sepp van Mark, Yves Lampaert, champion of Belgium. Teammates with Gilbert. Fourth wheel, Niels Pollitt's there for the Katusha squad in the gray and red. And Wout van Aert in the yellow jersey of Jumbo-Visma, the sixth man in a very powerful breakaway. 38 kilometers to go.
The quality of this breakaway is superb, and it's come to the top of the race on pure talent. This has not been a race of opportunist breakaways today. It has been pure experience and talent that's put these 6 riders in the lead. And they're building. It's a painful build, I have to say. They're prizing the seconds out, but they're going in the right direction just now. And the big danger there is Peter Sagan to them all. He takes his chances, Peter Sagan. He's one of the best bike handlers in the world. There's no doubt about that. But boy, he clips those corners.
And here's the chase led by Greg van Avermaet. No teammates to help him get that gap reduced a little bit that are able to help him. One teammate still there, but not at the front. And Greg van Avermaet having to do the work himself. That is a very tall order. A 1+ minute disadvantage for Greg van Avermaet. Oliver Naesen is in the second group. He's missed out on this split. A little bit surprised to see that. But an incredible ride by the man on the back of the breakaway in the yellow jersey, Wout van Aert. After an incredible amount of problems, he had a mechanical in the Arenberg. He got a spare bike from a teammate. He changed that after he caught back onto his spare bike. He crashed that and got back into the field and has got back onto his race bike now. And then went on the attack and made the breakaway with Peter Sagan. So what an incredible ride by Wout van Aert, regardless of what happens for the results at the end. Stijn Vandenberg coming to the front for Oliver Naesen. But look at the men from de Koenig still there to discourage any chasers.
Oh, there's a man that can see everything. One of the giants of Flanders. I think it's a man. And towers above the gendarme there as they watch the riders make their way towards the last 37 kilometers of this event. 6 riders, all against the rest, all working together to hold off the chase. They've got to remain friends for a while longer yet. Otherwise, the peloton will react.
AG2R has missed out. CCC has missed out. Team Sky has missed out. Groupama has missed out. So presumably those teams will be responsible for the chase and will try to do everything they can to close down the gap to our 6 leaders.
There's a nice poetry in motion shot there. The bikes bouncing over the dusty shed cobblestones of northern France. The legs taking the pounding. Meanwhile, this is Sepp van Mark giving the pounding now. Who knows what he's got? He's in a position.
Been plagued by a knee injury for the last few weeks. He was pretty solid in Tour of Flanders last week and having a great ride in Paris-Roubaix today.
Just 36 kilometers left. It is holding at 1 minute. Peter Sagan clips every corner, but these 6 boys are still looking good. There's the list for you. Sagan, Van Mark, Pollitt, Gilbert, Lampaert. It's Van Mark at the back at the moment. Van Aert is the boy in yellow nearer the front. He's 30 years of age now, Sepp van Mark. His birthday is just after the Tour de France each year at the end of July.
2013, one of his first participations in Paris-Roubaix. The man in pink was second to Fabian Cancellara, heralding himself as a potential winner of this event. Hasn't happened yet, but he might be in with his best chance today, depending on what happens in the last few sectors of cobbles. One more 5-star section, the Carrefour de l'Arbre, and maybe the toughest of them all, section of cobbles. Number 4, just on the horizon for the breakaway. 6 very powerful men being chased by the peloton, and that's hovering around the 1 minute mark, which it's been doing for the last 10-15 kilometers. And this is off the back of that chase group, and that's a little bit discouraging for Guillaume van Kiersbold, coming unstitched, and Greg van Avermaet, his teammate, has been doing the chasing for the last few Ks. Here's Stijn Vandenberg on the front of the chase.
Grit in his teeth now, Vandenberg. How much more fuel is left in that tank? We're heading to sector 8B, 1.7 kilometers.
Flick of the elbow will not do any good in encouraging the de Koenig rider on his wheel to come around. The de Koenig man, of course I'm not going to pull through. I got 2 teammates in the breakaway. Looks like Zdenek Stybar is the man's second wheel here in this group. Van Avermaet not chasing at the moment, and that's why now Philippe Gilbert finally taking off his warm-ups.
Getting a bit warm, the former world champion. Philippe Gilbert at the back, the man that started this move, is now looking for someone to take it off his top of his jersey. He's warmed up to the event. They're holding a 1 minute advantage. The same riders, Pollitt, Sagan, Wout van Aert, Yves Lampaert, Philippe Gilbert and Sepp Van Mark. Van Mark is the man in the pink for the American Education First Team. With a different rider, they won the other big classic last week in Belgium, the Tour de Flandre with Bettiol. Now, can they pull it off with Sepp Van Mark? Bob, Sepp Van Mark has finished 4th twice in this race and 2nd once. But like all of his big classic results, he doesn't win.
He has won Umloop Het Neuseblad, the very first classic of the year.
Yeah, that's a semi-classic.
But that was a long time ago. That was 7 years ago in his very first season as a professional. So when he did that...
2012 it was.
Yeah, and when he did that, the Belgian press went absolutely bananas for Sepp Van Mark in the pink jersey there, number 41. And he hasn't been able to get the huge victory since then, but he's been very close on a number of occasions. His teammate won Tour of Flanders last week, Alberto Bettiol, and looking to have a great ride. Don't think he could match the speed of Peter Sagan if it came down to a sprint, but at least he's in with a chance right now in Paris-Roubaix. I got to say, with the knee injury he's had for the last few weeks, pretty spectacular riding by Sepp Van Mark to be in for the win at Paris-Roubaix. It's not a done deal yet. Groupama still with some riders trying to help Arnaud Demare. And
I'm not sure the firepower's there from this group now.
Still at least 2 teammates for Demare.
Yes, and they've got to just ride and hope they bring him back to the race. There's no choice now if they want to win this race. Turning off the main highway, that highway in quotes, as we go back into the country lanes. This is the sector 8, and this will be the start of 2 sectors, I think it is. And this is 8B. Start of the 2nd sector of cobblestone to Lepinette. It's only 200 meters. We'll bounce over that in no time.
One section of smooth pavement in between the 2 sectors that make up 8A and B.
Yeah.
Wout van Aert on the front. And just the relentless pounding of these cobbled roads just wreak havoc on the body and the bicycle. It takes an incredibly spectacular athlete to be able to win Paris-Roubaix. You got to be pretty tough just to get to the finish. Peter Sagan on the front now. This is the smooth section, and we'll get back onto Sector 8B in a moment for the next sector of rough stone roads in Paris-Roubaix.
And I hear there's a crash to a Cofidis rider has just gone down, and it was a crash to Cyril Limois, but we haven't got a picture of it by the look of it. Well, I can hear it on race radio.
Nils Pollitt on the back of the breakaway. Been very active throughout today's racing for the Katusha squad. Katusha still looking for a big win on the year. They've had really struggles with some of their stars, including Marcel Kittel, getting the wins that they're accustomed to. That hasn't happened this year. But if Nils Pollitt won Paris-Roubaix, all of that would be quickly forgotten.
Not off. Sagan riding on the tops of the handlebars. In the center, very unusual position for the cobblestones. It's the end of section number 8 now. That's behind the riders, looking for sector 7 next. That'll take us through Sichuan, Bourgiel, and that'll take us to the last into kilometer 231. So they're still saying it's 1 minute. All the campers down there, they picked the best section for the overnight. It would have been cold overnight out here, I must confess. It was below freezing. 20 miles left to race, 32 kilometers. The riders know now that they've let a group go that could still decide this race very convincingly. And I'm not sure there is still the strength in this group. This race has been full on from the minute we started to stop the attacks. So the strong will out when you get a race like that.
Well, Stijn Vandenberg, an absolute superstar of the chase, has just not hesitated at all, and he's been trying at everything that he's had to keep his team boss Oliver Nason in the hunt. But that's getting less and less likely as the miles unfold. 1 minute advantage for the breakaway. Stijn Vandenberg's been the only man really to do much chasing, so he's going to need some help if he's going to close that down. Let's see if Groupama, the team of their sprinter Arnaud Demare, can close down. He's got 2 teammates at least in this group, but they need to come to the front and start working.
Wout van Aert on the front now.
Next sector just relentlessly coming at the riders, just all the way to the finish line. One more 5-star sector, and that is the Carrefour de l'Arbre, and that could be the difference between who wins and loses. If the breakaway has a minute in that sector, I would say that they are not going to get caught before the finish in Roubaix.
It could be the very decisive section. It is 5 stars, and because it's placed where it is, just about 17 kilometers from the finish, it is absolutely crucial. A rider getting away there could sail all the way to the finish on the Velodrome of Roubaix. And do you think Peter Sagan doesn't know that?
I'm sure he does. Well, 2 riders from De Koninck in the breakaway, 2 riders at least in this group from De Koninck. So De Koninck has had another dominant performance so far in Paris-Roubaix that they've done throughout this year, throughout last year. They did not get the wins in Flanders or Gent-Wevelgem, but they have a chance with 2 riders to do that today.
So the peloton chasing has not given up. It's just on about a minute. We're 19 miles from the finish, and these 6 boys know now it's their race to lose. Look at the face on the left there of Wout. What a great ride he's had today, whatever happens now. He's been in so much trouble with mechanicals falling off. Fought his way through the peloton to be in this breakaway, the boy in yellow. And he's looking at everybody with the confidence that one probably gets from being a world champion. He's also, for the last 2 years, finished 3rd in the Italian Bad Route Classic, the White Road.
Strade Bianche.
Yes.
An incredible debut on the road for Wout van Aert. 3rd in that race. Won by Tish Benoot, and very difficult conditions. Should be maybe the 6th monument on the calendar, but so far we have 5, and this is the 3rd of the year. Yeah, Milano-San Remo, Tour of Flanders, and now Paris-Roubaix. Philippe Gilbert has won 3 of the 5 monuments, looking to add Paris-Roubaix to his title today.
I tell you, he was looking there. See how he was watching what was coming. His head was twitching. He's very much up for the fight today, Gilbert. But he knows the quality of these riders around him. Sepp van Mark on his back wheel, number 41 there.
I'll tell you,
he knows what he can do.
One thing that Gilbert probably does not want to do is contest the sprint against Peter Sagan in the Velodrome. So watch for the De Koninck riders, Yves Lampaert and Philippe Gilbert, to start attacking not that far from now and see if they cannot get some separation between themselves and maybe the fastest man in the front group out of everybody, Peter Sagan, in a sprint.
Yeah, absolutely right. Sector 7, Sisouin. 2.7 kilometers to get there. 3 stars for this one. It's a bumpy ride, but it's not going to hurt them too much.
Stijn Vandenberg still on the front. One has to wonder how much strength he still has left. He's been chasing for at least 50 kilometers. AG2R missing the move, so they've been on the defensive. They've had to chase, and now they're down to just one man. Stijn Vandenberg chasing for Oliver Naesen, their team leader. Capable of winning a classic, hasn't done it yet, but he's been very close on a number of occasions, and he still must be in the second group. Stijn Vandenberg chasing. Yves Lampaert asking for the team car to come up, maybe to get one last water bottle for the finale, one little morsel of food perhaps if he's out, and then contest the finale, being pretty casual about it.
He looks,
and maybe fancying their chances now to start getting the finale unfolded. 28 Ks to go, still quite a ways. Not impossible for this chase group to catch, but it doesn't look like the momentum is in their favor. The power definitely in the lead 6.
Well, I would expect the attack to come on the Carrefour de l'Arbre, which will leave them about 16.5 kilometers to ride to the finish. See the break in the center there because of the bad roads. It's not uncommon to see, in this case it's Van Aert, hold the handlebars there. We're heading now towards Sector 7 at Sisouin-Bourgel. It's 1.3 kilometers. These boys are locked in at just under 1 minute. So the chase behind, which is being done totally by Stijn Vandenberg, is holding them just now. This is Niels Pollitt, gone back for a bottle. Oh, a bit of food. Oh, looks like a cape as well. He's not expecting rain today, surely.
That was some liquid nutrition by their nutrition provider, and those little goo packets. Easy to open and pour down your mouth as quickly as you can, and you're breathing as hard as these guys must be and have been doing so for so long. But one last bit of energy for Niels Pollitt there could be critical, especially if you're starting to run out of energy. 230 kilometers into this race, would not be out of the question that you start to get hunger knock, and if that happens, doesn't matter how far ahead you are, you're going to lose a lot of time in the last miles. That would make these guys in the classics that are so special athletes, go so hard for so many miles. Peter Sagan included, Philippe Gilbert, undeniable record of wins for those riders in these long, hard classics, and they've been making so many watts for so many miles. Really a special athlete can keep that going all the way to the end of these classic races and the monuments.
Well, this is the famous northern French town on the Paris-Roubaix route, is Sissoin. And Peter Sagan, I think he's just waiting, and I wonder if he'll give it 100% when we get to the Carrefour de l'Arbre. It's the sort of move where I'd expect Philippe Gilbert to give it a final go. He won't want the sprint finish at the finish. Sagan can deal with the sprint finish, probably better than Gilbert. As we're heading on to Sector 7 now. The crowd have waited for this, and they can still get through to the finishing line as well from this area here in France. It's only 3 stars, this one. It's a nice little hors d'oeuvre coming up for the big one, which is still a couple of sectors away of Le Arbre.
Well, this is going to be a critical sector to watch that gap. Peter Sagan now going to the front, making a big effort, puts a lot of pressure on the men that are with him to make the same kind of tempo. And if that gap increases even by a couple of seconds, it means that Peter Sagan still has plenty of energy left and is going to be able to hold. And there it's going up a little bit. Philippe Gilbert, let's see if he pulls through and the gap continues to go up, then this 6 riders will probably stay away to the finish line, or at least some of them in this number of men. Philippe Gilbert riding great. Peter Sagan going back to the back of the group.
Yeah, dodging the lips on those cobblestones again. He's been in trouble already today, but he recovered well. One just wonders if he should stay in the middle, which tends to be the best way through these cobblestones. But hey, I can't tell a man like Sagan how to ride cobblestones. After all, he won this race last year. Just under a kilometre left to ride. They've only got 8.5 kilometres of cobbled roads left. And forget the last sector, because that's a ceremonial approach on the smoothest cobbles I've ever seen into the velodrome. But the worst sector, the Carrefour de l'Arbre, is still ahead.
Cameraman in the second group there needs to check the suspension on his motorbike. Pretty shaky shot there from the chase group of our 6 leaders.
Well, in all honesty, you've got to take your hat off to the television coverage. It's amazing.
Absolutely.
On these roads. 25 coming up kilometres are left to ride in the 117th edition of Paris-Roubaix. It's been a war of attrition, and 6 of the best riders by reputation have got the lead over the rest. And the rest are about 50 strong at the moment, chasing at less than 1 minute. A situation we've had for many, many kilometres now. But they're heading towards the toughest section of this course. Peter Sagan, the defending champion, wears number 1. The champion of Belgium alongside him here is Yves Lampaert. Driving at the front at the moment is the young upstart Wout van Aert, who in the yellow jersey there. It's been an extraordinary race, a high-speed race, and there we are, 25 kilometres to go.
Well, that's not a good sign at all.
That is not a good sign. Somebody may have gone through the back of that window. That's what usually happens when it's smashed like that. Let's hope it's okay. The car is in the convoy, and we've got the champion of Belgium riding here at the front, Lampaert. Niels Pollitt is in trouble, and so too now is Matteo Trentin. It looks like he had his moments. He was in the breakaway, he had a problem, he went back to the peloton with a flat tire, and now those legs have given in.
Very active throughout the early cobbled sections, but Matteo Trentin now waving off the water bottle there from the helper on the side of the road and calling to the team car that my day is done. off the back of this chase group. Holding steady, 50 seconds. That gap has come down a little bit, so still some hope for the chasers that they can catch our 6 leaders.
Sector 6 has just begun now for the leaders in Bourgel. 3 stars this time as we creep closer to the big one, the Carrefour de l'Arbre. There's one more in between, but it gets a bit more difficult at Campfin.
Sepp van Mark choosing the smoother surface on the side of the cobbles, but always dangerous because not out of the question you collide with a spectator if you do that, especially if they're not looking where you're coming, like those riders just in front of Sepp van Mark seem to be doing at the moment. Yeah. Now he swings back onto the cobbles quite a bit safer, even though it's way rougher than the side of the cobbles.
But these boys are all riding so well. They're not missing a beat at all. The only suspect for me at the moment is Niels Pollitt. His face is a picture of pain. He's down the back there with that red crash helmet on just at the moment. This guy looks cool and calm, the champion of Belgium, Yves Lampert, enjoying his day in the French hell. He comes from Belgium, just over the road by the finishing line, and he would love to win this race.
Hard right-hand corner for the chase group. You have to come to almost a stop on these cobbles, and then to regain your momentum is so agonizing this deep into the race. 230 plus kilometers already covered. Stijn Vandenberg doing his best to keep the breakaway honest, but it's very tough when on his wheel is Zdeněk Stybar with 2 teammates up the road. Jens Kukelaar, the man from the Lada Soudal squad in red and white, at the back of the second group on the road, chasing our 6 leaders.
51 seconds at the moment. I counted 30 riders left in that chase group there. The champion of Belgium drives now, and right on his back wheel, the defending champion of Paris-Roubaix, Peter Sagan, followed by Philippe Gilbert, another Belgian rider. Then Niels Pollitt, then Van Aert, and finally Sepp van Mark. Those are the riders now setting the pace with 23 kilometers left to go. Philippe Gilbert continues to pile on the pressure. Well, that was attempted by Gilbert. Sagan was up for it.
Big attack by Gilbert, yeah, absolutely. Niels Pollitt making the juncture. Wout van Aert's been all over the place in today's race. Well, let's see if he can close the gap now till Gilbert and Sagan and Pollitt.
I tell you, Pollitt, look at his face. He's grimacing at the back in agony. He's been up here longer than most today, and yet he goes with the move. He is desperate to get a result here.
Well, let's see if he can pull through, if he has enough strength to cooperate with Gilbert and Sagan. It might be a little bit of gamesmanship, trying to get the riders around him to think that he's really suffering when he actually is not that bad off. So
he's gone through.
When he's at the front and they can't see him, he's still. Oh!
Wow! I thought Lampert had touched the back wheel then of Sepp van Mark.
Yeah, this is a tricky situation for.
Now, this is typical of a Belgian racing cyclist. They don't pull together now, and they're all losing at the moment.
Well, let's see if Van Aert can come through. I mean, he's had such an incredible day so far. Chasing, mechanicals, a crash. He might not have the energy to close the gap now down to Philippe Gilbert, Niels Pollitt, and Peter Sagan. And Yves Lampart, if he plays the team game now, that's a big advantage for the De Koenig squad, and that's why it's helpful, so helpful to have the numbers in the finale. If he sits on and Van Aert and Van Mark chase, well, then Yves Lampart could throw in a counterattack. Niels Pollitt still continuing to pull through. Well, I have a feeling we're going to have a 2-man finale between Gilbert and Sagan, though. Still a couple of tough sections still to go.
21 kilometers left. It's 62 seconds now, and we have split the break at the moment. Sagan, Gilbert, Pollitt have piled the pressure on, and there's, I think, no firepower left in the 3 who are chasing. In fact, Van Aert there looks as though he must be extremely tired, Van Aert. He's only a young lad. And watch this now, because he's launching for the attack, and this is Lampert. He's gone, quickly chased by Van Mark. Are they going to distance Van Aert? He must be struggling. The gap is stretching.
Van Aert getting dropped now. He's done so much already. Chasing, changing bikes, crashing. Such bad luck, but incredibly powerful ride by Van Aert, but it might come to nothing now. I think that Yves Lampart is about to drop him. Sepp van Mark doing a good ride to stay on the wheel of Yves Lampart. A little bit strange to see Yves Lampaert chasing with so much vigor his own teammate up the road. Let's see if he sits up and tries to get Van Mark to come around him. Van Mark in the pink. Here's Wout van Aert. An incredibly gallant ride by Van Aert. But maybe just a few kilometers too long for Van Aert today.
If there's one thing we've learned about this young man, Wout van Aert, it is the fact he's tenacious. The chase group behind, and there's still 64 seconds off a split breakaway, is still trying to get across the gap.
Delco Marseille rider. This is maybe a little, too late. A minute 5 disadvantage. It's going to be virtually impossible for a single rider to be able to do that at this point in Paris-Roubaix.
That's the second year this team has been given a wild card into the race. And coming to the finale, it looks as though they've got one man reasonably well placed here. We're now approaching the sector 5. 5 sections of cobblestone still to go. The world champion Peter Sagan. With him is Philippe Gilbert and Niels Pollitt. This is Wout van Aert here, the tenacious youngster who's had so many problems yet survived with the leaders. I think has now reached his limit today. He'll come back as a star of the future, I'm sure of that, but he's gone now. These are the 3 leaders. Philippe Gilbert, his vast experience of one-day cobbles, takes them on to segment number 6.
On Philippe Gilbert making the great raid here with one tough sector after this one to go, but this sector not to be taken lightly either.
This is a tough sector. I've seen big riders, Sean Kelly break his handlebars here, and Henny Kuiper making his bid for victory here, the great Dutchman. This is a tough section of pavé. It's only 4 stars with a 5-star still to come. But the gap is opening. But I tell you what, Yves Lampaert, the champion of Belgium, is still chasing his own teammate in blue here, Philippe Gilbert, to try and get back on terms.
I don't disagree with that entirely.
I don't think I do either, actually, Bob, yeah.
Then you have 2 men, and if Philippe Gilbert goes to the line with Peter Sagan, Sagan probably beat him. Niels Pollitt also. So if you get another rider into the mix, it gives you some extra options in the closing miles to play out. So let's see if Yves Lampaert can close the gap down. I mean, if you're going to do that, though, you want Philippe Gilbert to ease up a little bit, perhaps.
What a bizarre situation this is. 2 riders from Belgium on the same team, one chasing and one trying to keep away from him. And this is the poor man who's paid the price. They worked him over, and I think they've got rid of him. Probably a mistake saying that, because this man is so tenacious, he doesn't seem to ever give up. Van Aert.
To be honest, if Lampaert and Sepp Van Mark catch this little group of Pollitt, Sagan, and Gilbert, they might sit up and hesitate for a little bit and give Wout van Aert one last chance to catch up with the leaders. I don't think he's going to win because of how much effort he's had to put in, but he still has a chance to catch up to the 3 leaders.
Here's a little reminder to Gilbert from Peter Sagan that I'm going all right, because that was a big push then by Gilbert. Sagan, the former 3-time world champion, over the top of Gilbert, just to let him know he's still very much in this race. And probably for the first time, there's a little bit of pain on Peter's face. You don't often see that. They know what they've got now. This is the podium if they can keep the pressure on. Niels Pollitt, outstanding number 51. He suffered his way around this course today. I thought he was cracked ages ago. He's still there.
And look at the time gap going up now over a minute to the chasing field. A minute 16 now the advantage for the 3 men. Wout van Aert 20 seconds behind Peter Sagan, who's leading. These 2 riders just about to get back on terms. Sepp Van Mark and Yves Lampaert.
Well, they're back. 2 Belgians rejoin the front group.
If you're Lampaert, you need to attack. If you have any energy left, right about now.
Well, what we're leading to is showdown on the Carrefour de l'Arbre. It comes at sector 4. It's the next section, and it's not very far away. Maybe 4 kilometers.
If you reach this section, number 5-star section, 1K to go to the last very tough sector. If you're in this group of 5, you got to start figuring out how you're going to win Paris-Roubaix.
Absolutely. Obviously, the 2 that just come back on at the tail there are going to be tired. Sagan's taken a good look at them. Gilbert, I am convinced this man is a lone expert at escaping the pack. He will go, the rider in blue. And Peter Sagan, I think, will also try to go too. I can't believe Pollitt has got the legs to go with anything now. He's the man in the middle of these 5.
Well, Peter Sagan is in an enviable situation right now. If he makes a tempo across the cobbles to just stay in contention, he can probably win the sprint. He just has to go at his speed. He'll hold off the chasing field, who might have the only couple of guys capable of beating him in a sprint. So Peter Sagan has had a brilliant Paris-Roubaix, and he is in with a chance to defend his title from last year.
They're approaching the cobblestones. Way steady on, said Sepp van Mark. Little bump of shoulders there. I think it was accidental by the champion of Belgium, Lampert, coming through. Sector 4, and the champion of Belgium brings them onto it. Now, who's going to attack on this one? This is the toughest section without doubt, and it comes so near the finish. 5 black stars, Sector 4, first brought into this race in 1980. And it's been in the race, since 1958, and the trace is identical, the route is identical since 1980. 2 kilometers now. The champion of Belgium only just come back. Sagan straight after him. Sagan, I think, will try to go alone here and show his strength. Pollitt is in trouble.
Niels Pollitt in danger of being dropped at the back. Yves Lampaert trying to do everything, staying on the smooth side next to the cobbles. Peter Sagan, let's see if he makes a move. This is the kingmaker section of cobbles in Paris-Roubaix. The difference between winning and losing the Carrefour de l'Arbre. Epic battle being fought out. 2 De Koninck riders against Peter Sagan and Sepp van Mark.
Now it's still the champion of Belgium, Yves Lampaert, here looking for the win. He says he's always wanted. He doesn't live very far away from the finishing line, just in a different country, as he drives the race at the front. I don't think anybody from behind is going to get back. It's 1 minute 10 seconds to the back route now. That's a lot at this stage of Paris-Roubaix. Just over 10 miles, 16 kilometers left to race to the velodrome. And there's still a big bunch, some 25 riders in the chase group.
That is Greg Van Avermaet trying to close the gap down. He's left it maybe a little bit too late. A minute disadvantage for Greg Van Avermaet, the winner 2 years ago. Yep. Don't think he's going to repeat this year. Don't believe that all of these riders will be caught, if any, before the velodrome in Roubaix for the finish.
These 5 boys, surprisingly, haven't split up here. I think that was a very, very clever move by Yves Lampaert to control the speed of the race over these cobblestones, having just caught back up, having been left behind when the race split. And now he's controlling the pace, and here comes the run from Gilbert through the inside, full speed ahead, and the boy in black won't chase him. They're on the same team. Sagan has gone after him, so too Sepp van Mark locks onto the wheel of the man who won this race a year ago. Gilbert had to go here. This is chance to win.
Gilbert putting in his attack with his teammate on the front. Lampaert will sit up now when he sees Gilbert come by, and it's Peter Sagan now that has to react to this acceleration from Philippe Gilbert, making his move to win Paris-Roubaix, but so far Sagan's been able to get on the wheel of Gilbert.
Well, Gilbert knows this has got to be his move. He's got to give everything he's got and see if it's good enough, because Sagan has got into now. Gilbert finished what for him is a fairly lowly place in 15th place last year, but he rides so well over the cobblestones, as his record shows of past. Little clash of shoulders there, unintentional, because Gilbert slowed down and he's forced Sagan to take up the running. The 2 of them now trying to split away from the rest.
And Gilbert's acceleration has put his own teammate Yves Lampaert into a little bit of danger. Lampaert just off the back of the 2 chasers, Niels Pollitt and Sepp van Mark, chasing Sagan and Gilbert, and Yves Lampaert in danger of being dropped from the front group. Peter Sagan leading them off that last 5-star section and onto some smooth pavement, and that'll be a welcome relief from the Carrefour de l'Arbre. Here's Lampaert having been dropped now by the 4 leaders in front. A gap here now for Niels Pollitt, a very powerful rider. You don't want to give him too much of an advantage at all. 2 De Koninck riders. Philippe Gilbert going after Pollitt right now.
Well, Pollitt, the big surprise, he has suffered his way to this position and he will not give up. He's being drawn to the finishing line. Gilbert, whose best finish 8th in Paris, sorry, I got that one wrong, but Gilbert has never actually ridden well in this particular event.
Well,
as
Peter
he now
Sagan
tries to reach, Gilbert trying to reach Pollitt.
About to lose Paris-Roubaix. If he can't close the gap now to Gilbert, he'll have Lampaert on his wheel, and Gilbert and Niels Pollitt, they will not wait for Peter Sagan. I can guarantee you that.
I tell you, this is the first time we've seen the weakness in Peter Sagan. He seems to have been living on the fact that he won this race last year and has tried desperately to rise to the occasion. Done everything right so far. But as we get to the last 13 kilometres of racing, about 7.5 miles to go, he's showing us now he's lacking. And Philippe Gilbert is going clear with Niels Pollitt, none other than the man who, look at his face, the man in second place. He's determined to go to the finish today. Well, there's the face. Is it a beaten face?
It's looking like Peter Sagan is in big trouble right now. Philippe Gilbert and Niels Pollitt have put the pressure on. Let's see if Sagan can close the gap. And he's just behind the two men in front. He really has to go hard now to close the gap down if he wants to win.
13 kilometres to go. The defending champion in trouble. There might be a new winner of Paris-Roubaix this year. Pollitt, what a ride this would turn out to be. And you can't say he doesn't deserve victory. He has been up and down. Remember, he broke away originally and was dropped. He got picked up by the chasing group, came back to the leaders. He's suffered ever since. And now the others are cracked.
Well, let's see if Peter Sagan gets any help from Sepp van Mark, number 41 in the pink and blue. Pretty sure you're guaranteed that Yves Lampaert is not going to help whatsoever. He's got Philippe Gilbert up in the front, his own teammate. Oh, no.
Well, I'm not sure what that meant.
Oh, no, if he has a flat tire, that would be the worst possible thing imaginable.
I think he has. His hand's gone up there.
It might be something else. It might be that the number has come loose and is cutting into his leg as he pedals.
12.5 kilometres left to ride. 13 seconds is the split by the leaders of the breakaway now. We've seen one or two strange antics coming from Sepp van Mark. There he is. And now he seems to have a problem, but he's trying to get back. I'm not sure though, but he hasn't changed his bike because he's got a number on this one. Is he still battling a flat tyre? Did he get a quick change? The cameras didn't show us, but he's got back up to these two leaders. Sagan, no, the problem still exists for him. He wants advice. What a shame at this stage of the race, 12 kilometres out for Sepp van Mark. I think he needs a bike, personally. Seems to be quite a serious problem.
I think that the derailleur is not functioning, so he's in this huge gear and is unable to shift out of that.
Well, in Paris-Roubaix, she is the queen of the classics, but things fall off your bike you never knew you had on them in this event, and that may have happened to poor Sepp.
Well, a perfect attack by Philippe Gilbert when Peter Sagan was at his most vulnerable, and now an 18-second advantage, and two very motivated riders and two very powerful riders as well. Niels Pollitt, a little bit under the radar, but a lot of the pundits had him down as an outside favorite to win because of how powerful he is and how well he's been riding. Top 10 last year.
Yeah, 7th last year.
7th last year, and had a great Tour of Flanders last week. Niels Pollitt in fantastic shape, but take nothing away from Philippe Gilbert. He's won 3 of the monuments, and he's dreaming of winning all of them in his career.
Yep.
And today might be his best chance to win Paris-Roubaix.
Wow.
16 seconds, and Peter Sagan still chasing. But the problem for Sagan is it doesn't seem like Sepp van Mark can help. And the teammate of Gilbert is on his wheel, Yves Lampaert. So a complicated situation for Peter Sagan, exacerbated by being absolutely exhausted here after so many sectors of brutal cobbles and making big tempo. Niels Pollitt looks to have recuperated a little bit from those grimaces he was making earlier and taking hard turns at the front with Philippe Gilbert.
Well, this is a superb effort by Gilbert, and a real superb effort by number 51 there, which is Niels Pollitt, 7th in Paris-Roubaix, the only time he's ever finished this event in the top 10. Now looks at Gilbert to try and check out what is going on. Gilbert in turn looks over his shoulder to see if anybody's creeping up. It's looking good. The gap of 17 seconds after you've ridden for over 5.5 hours like this on full pressure, because this has been full pressure. You're going to feel 17 seconds is enough. Willem is where we're headed to now. It comes in the sector 2, and then really the cobbles are over after sector 2, and that's 2.5 kilometers to the good. Sagan, the defending champion. Nobody has won this race back-to-back since Tom Bonen in 2009, and it's not looking too good for Sagan this time out either.
Tactically not in his favor with the teammate of Yves Lampaert up the road, Philippe Gilbert, champion of Belgium, black, yellow, and red jersey, number 66, that's Yves Lampaert. His teammate in a different jersey in the dark blue, the very distinctive colors of the De Koenigswad, and that's him, Philippe Gilbert, number 64. these two riders will contend for the win in Paris-Roubaix.
We've just passed the 10-kilometre banner. We're 9.8 from the finishing line. The battle is between number 51, Niels Pollitt, and number 64 there, who is Philippe Gilbert. The man who's done most things in his career and now looking for his first ever podium in Paris-Roubaix. 24 seconds to Peter Sagan, Yves Lampaert and Sepp Van Mark.
Just 2 sectors of cobbles to come. A pretty big advantage now, and is closing in on 30 seconds. Pollitt's pulling through, taking his turns. Philippe Gilbert definitely highly motivated, incredibly powerful. This is his bread and butter, so good at these long classics. He's won almost all of them during his career and looking to add Paris-Roubaix. Pollitt 7th in last year's edition of Paris-Roubaix, 5th in Flanders a week ago on great form, has had a spectacular Paris-Roubaix. Here's Sepp Van Mark at the neutral team car, having a long discussion. Getting a spare bike, not really an option. He's going to have to wait for his own team car to be able to do that.
I tell you, this has never ever been a race for Philippe Gilbert, and here he is amongst the last two riders going towards the finish, which is now only 8.8 kilometers ahead. The fight has gone here from these three. Sagan knows its curtains this year. These two are taking the race to the finishing line. The crowd already, there's an enormous crowd here. It's one of the biggest I've seen here in the Velodrome. And they could be cheering a Belgian, looking for the first classic win of the year for his country. That's unprecedented, by the way. Normally the Belgian have won by now. And Niels Pollitt with him.
De Kooning again playing the numbers game. They had 2 men in the breakaway, and in the chase group they had 2 riders, including Zdeněk Štýbar, discouraging the chase. And then they had the power to split up the breakaway. Here's Wout van Aert about to be caught by the chase group. A very valiant ride, incredibly courageous ride by Wout van Aert.
He's
got
going
a
to be
flat
dizzy.
tire, got a teammate's bike, then he got his spare bike, crashed that, then got his original bike back, chased for mile after mile. Right when he caught, went into the breakaway that is going to contend for the win in Paris-Roubaix. A great ride by Wout van Aert, but I think he gave too much with that bad luck to be able to contend the finale with Philippe Gilbert and Niels Pollitt.
Well, he had to commit, and commit he did. I think he'll have trouble hanging on to that chase group now. We're on sector 2 now with the 2 front runners. Then there's the little cobble stretch as we turn into the stadium. That's sector 1. The cobblestones are almost all gone. 53.1 done, 54.5 on the menu today. Some nasty holes on the inside there, which aren't cobblestones. But the riders taking a chance here. They can't risk a flat tire now. This should be a winning gap, but you know, 36 seconds is wiped out with the blink of an eyelid if you get a flat tire.
Absolutely, and that's the one thing Gilbert needs to be careful of. Maybe dial it back just a tiny little bit so you don't have a flat tire, and just stay on the cobbles where it's a little bit safer, a lot rougher, but at least there's not as much of a danger for getting a flat tire. So that's the only danger for Philippe Gilbert at this point for the rest of the race. 7.5 kilometers to go. What a great ride by Niels Pollitt to find that wheel of Philippe Gilbert and contest the win in Paris-Roubaix, we think, today.
Gilbert has kept the pressure on all the way over those cobblestones, and Pollitt has just closed his eyes, grimaced and hung on, because he's at the limit here. But you've got to get rid of a man, because when you see that finishing line, it all changes. Pollitt is from Germany. Gilbert is from nearby Belgium, although he doesn't live too near where we are. He lives across the other side of Brussels. But this has been a ride and a half by Philippe Gilbert as well.
And that's the group with Peter Sagan. Here's Wout van Aert. And he's about to get caught, or he's been caught and dropped by the chase group.
Yes, I thought so.
Yeah.
The tank is empty. Those last 7 kilometers for this young man are going to seem like another 257. But he's done a great ride, and he's lived up to his reputation. He's fast building as a great one-day rider. This is Gilbert. Looks through underneath his arm to see where this man Pollitt is such a big rider. He is puffing and blowing. He is grimacing. I'm not sure what's left in those legs. This is what Paris-Roubaix does for you. It brings everything out of your body. It tells you who you are.
Niels Pollitt making an incredible ride today. He's going to definitely improve, barring disaster from his placing last year. Sagan getting dropped from the pursuers led by Sepp van Mark. Yves Lampaert struggling to stay on that wheel. But it seems as if the fight has gone out of Peter Sagan for today's race, Paris-Roubaix.
Sagan, his back is aching. You can see he's stretching it out, making my back ache watching Peter here. Well, that's made one thing for sure. 41 seconds is a winning margin. Which one is it, though?
Let's see if Gilbert doesn't put in a couple of attacks to try to win solo. A lot more likely if nobody is with you. Let's see what Sepp van Mark does now. His team car is beside him. It looks like he's going to change his bicycle.
Well, that is really sad, but it was pre-arranged. He's spoken to the team car on the radio. He's brought the team car up. He's off his bike. These two haven't got any more strength left to lift the pace, but can Sepp van Mark even close the gap? 5 kilometers to go for the leaders. We were spot on with our 10-kilometer marker. We seem to have drifted out. Now that'll be corrected. The road markers are correct.
Nils Pollitt to the front. One last ceremonial section of cobbles. Before that, the iconic Roubaix Velodrome that will crown this year's champion of Paris-Roubaix. My money is on Philippe Gilbert at the moment.
We're in France, and they write it in English. James Roubaix. There is the entry to the right of our picture, and you can see the crowd I was talking about now. They're packing the centre as well. So, Gilbert takes second wheel, Bob.
Gilbert, everything to gain. He has the most experience of these two riders. Got to be a little bit quicker in a sprint. Nils Pollitt, a very powerful rider.
I think Pollitt's just too weak.
Stranger things have happened, and this is one of them. Peter Sagan being dropped in the last podium position. Well, Yves Lampaert going forward.
For Peter, it's victory or nothing. And right now, in his book, it's not going to be anything at all, because he's dropped there by the teammate of Gilbert, who could make it 2 teammates, de Koning, in the first 3 riders to finish. No signs of the return yet of Sepp van Mark. Unfortunate bike change having been enacted. We'll see if he comes through to even get 4th place of Peter Sagan.
I don't know about you, Phil, but I do not see Gilbert losing this sprint against one rider. I mean, Nils Pollitt could come up with the surprise. He hasn't shown himself to be that quick. Incredibly powerful, unbelievable sustained power. And at the end of 257 kilometers, who knows what is left in Philippe Gilbert's legs, but I would give the advantage to Philippe Gilbert.
In this year's Tour de France, Philippe Gilbert will be 37 years of age. He's won 91 races. Is this going to be his 92nd? The pressure is on Belgium to get a win. It's unprecedented by this country. They haven't won one of the major classic races at this time of the year. Now it's down to Philippe Gilbert, who's a very popular rider.
De Koning criticized in the last couple of weeks for not winning Ghent-Wevelgem or the Tour of Flanders, even though they won just about everything during the season up until that point. But they are showing their strength again today. One last chit-chat with the sports director from the team car. Last word of encouragement for Philippe Gilbert from the De Koning quick-step car. And Gilbert still cooperating with Nils Pollitt. Great ride by Pollitt. Let's see if he doesn't produce a surprise. It would be a shock if he won Paris-Roubaix, beating Philippe Gilbert in a 2-up sprint. I don't see Gilbert letting him get away. I would like to see the motorcycles get a little bit further ahead of them, giving them a bit of a draft at the moment. It can't be denied. That would be impossible for any chaser without that same advantage to catch them.
3 kilometers actually from the finishing line now for the 2 leaders. And we're on the outskirts of Roubaix. We run down a little bit of a dual carriageway road before we switch into the center of the carriageway for this ceremonial crossing of the last sector of cobblestones, which are perfectly laid. Then we swing right and into the stadium, where we get the traditional cheers from the crowd for the first man into the stadium. It's a very emotional happening. 40 seconds the gap. It's got to be enough. These two, though, are now getting worried about one another. Pollitt has been forced into the lead. The Belgian rider, Philippe Gilbert, who's won so many great events in his career, which includes stages in the Giro d'Italia, the Tour de France, and the Tour of Spain. But he's never won Paris-Roubaix, and he's back in the lead again now.
Former world champion Philippe Gilbert.
I'll tell you what, though, Nils Pollitt We know he can finish. He's a big man. I don't know how he can handle the track in Roubaix for being such a big man. If he was ever a trackie, it would be sort of an individual pursuiter. But we'll see, because when you hit the steeply banked track in Roubaix, if you're not a track rider, it is a daunting thing to do. Well, they're saying it is 1 minute and 10 seconds, so they're riding away from the field. This is the low man in third place, the champion of Belgium. He'd be delighted, Yves Lampaert, with this event, especially if his teammate Philippe Gilbert wins, because he lives pretty close to the finishing line over in Belgium, and he wanted a result. He didn't like to predict it, but, well, he's on the podium at the moment. Look at the crowd now. This is the road taking us straight down to the stadium. Soon these riders will flick into the centre behind the crowd, and then they'll come back to their right into the stadium. So we must remember that on the track, Pollitt proved that he could win. He finished 7th, but it was a small group sprint to get that 7th place. He knows the way around the velodrome. Gilbert does not have a love affair with Paris-Roubaix as he did with other big one-day races like the Ardennes Classics. They're still to come. 1.8 kilometers.
Niels Pollitt, a pretty decent turn of speed a couple of times in his career in the Tour of Germany and last year in Paris-Roubaix. And Philippe Gilbert will really have to watch his P's and Q's and not give Niels Pollitt any opportunity whatsoever to win. And we'll see how the sprint plays out in the velodrome in Paris-Roubaix. What a ride by Gilbert and Niels Pollitt. It's a shame that one of them has to lose.
It always is, Bob, and this is Paris-Roubaix, the greatest one-day race in the world. There's the change of direction, the smoothest cobblestones you will ever find here as they race towards the right turn into the stadium. They're going to hit that stadium track onto it, and they go a lap and a half round it. One of them's going to lose, one of them's going to win, and for either of them it would probably be rated as one of the biggest victories of their career, and Philippe Gilbert has had a few.
Well, watch out. Yves Lampaert is only 24 seconds behind our two leaders, and if they goof around any cat and mouse whatsoever, Lampart's going to catch them.
Here we go, onto the velodrome. The crowd are ready. Two men have beaten the rest to the velodrome. But the third rider is closing in, by the way. This is it. The crowd have welcomed them, but I'll tell you what, Yves Lampaert is now only 18 seconds behind them. And it's 1.5. We're waiting to see the figure of the champion of Belgium. We switch back to the track. 1 lap to go when they come through the finishing line. There's the bell, you can hear it. They're looking at each other. They can't afford to finesse, because they'll lose if they do. Because Yves Lampaert is already in the stadium and he is racing down the bowl of the track. Pollitt is in probably the unnatural position to win from. Philippe Gilbert has paced him. They're riding high on the track. That's to stop the attack can only come underneath. It can't go over the top. They know that the Belgian champion is closing in as well. Gilbert is judging his finish. Pollitt doesn't want to move early yet as they continue round the back. Half a lap to go. Pollitt is going to have to break soon. Gilbert will dive for the bottom if he can. Pollitt has closed it down as they come around the board now. Through the inside, Philippe Gilbert. Those sprinting legs, have they come back? Pollitt is digging deep. But Gilbert is going to score for Belgium. He has won Paris-Roubaix, and that for him is a major, major deal. Behind this group of cyclists is the rider who finishes third. The champion of Belgium has just seen his teammate win. They have crossed the line in first and third. What a result.
De Koninck first and third. Here comes Peter Sagan, Seb Van Mark, but they're racing for fourth place. I think Van Mark will get the better of Peter Sagan. Philippe Gilbert winning this monument. What an incredible ride. De Koninck perfect throughout the day. And Philippe Gilbert finishing it off for the Belgian squad. Fourth place for Van Mark. Fifth place for Peter Sagan. There's the chasers. They still have a lap to go. Here's the fight for Sixth place, also taken out by de Koninck. So first, third, and sixth for the de Koninck squad, and that man is the king of Belgium, the king of Paris-Roubaix, and the king of the cobbles. Niels Paulett reviving the fortunes of the Katusha squad on today's race. They've struggled for results throughout the season, but that is pretty spectacular for the Alpecin Katusha squad. Third place, Yves Lampaert.
Yves Lampaert qui va être félicité par Madame Florence Barizot, vice-présidente de la région Hauts-de-France en charge de la jeunesse, des sports et du tourisme. Yves Lampaert qui occupe donc la 3e place de ce podium avec le maillot distinctif de champion de Belgique sur route. Yves Lampaert qui là aussi a joué un rôle prépondérant dans la victoire de son coéquipier qu'on saluera.
Miss Florence Barizot.
That's Florence Barizot presenting the prize. She's the Vice President in charge of youth, sports and tourism for this region, which is the Hauts-de-France. There's one cobblestone for the third place now. Big cheers for Niels Paulett there.
Javier Bertrand, the president of Hauts-de-France region, presenting him with the second largest cobble out of the three. That's a pretty handy prize.
Wait till you see the one that goes to Philippe Gilbert. All three deserving all of the applause here.
Et maintenant, le vainqueur de la 117e
And now to the biggest cheer of the day.
représentant la Belgique pour la formation de Koninck Quick-Step, Philippe Gilbert.
Very popular rider. He's a Walloon from the French-speaking part of Belgium. The winner of Paris-Roubaix 2019 as it rises out of hell.
The stone's so heavy it needs a hydraulic lift to get to the level where it can be presented to the winner.
It is a bit big.
This is the mayor of Roubaix, Guillaume Delbar, presenting Philippe Gilbert with maybe the most iconic trophy in all of professional cycling.
Yeah.
Whoa!
Steady on, Philippe. But those arms must be aching now.
He's managed it. You do not want to drop that on your foot.
Very good point.
Oh yeah, that's plenty of time to hold it aloft.
National.
5 hours, 58 minutes in the saddle. Only one man gets the big cobblestone, and today it is a man doing it for the first time, but he's not a surprise in any way. He's one of the best cyclists from Belgium, Philippe Gilbert. Magnificent bunches of flowers, I have to say, and he's still got some strength left.
Philippe Gilbert, Nice Polite et Yves Lampart, le podium.
The trophies made in a masonry shop in Auxerre, which is a village along the race course, and cut from the same stones that are used to repair the cobbled section by the Amis de Paris-Roubaix, the volunteer group that maintains the cobble roads and lobbies the government to keep them intact. Andrea Tafe, who won Paris-Roubaix in 1999, threatened to come back this year, actually used his trophy in an archway in a house that he had built in Italy. So in his house, his trophy from Paris-Roubaix is in the masonry of an arch entering his house in Italy. So I don't think you need to go to those lengths, but I'm sure that that trophy will feature prominently on Philippe Gilbert's mantle for many years to come.
We look down on the Roubaix Velodrome. The previous winners, Peter Sagan finished in 5th place this time around. Greg Van Avermaet, also a winner a couple of years ago, finished in 12th place today. And John Degenkolb, he finished 27th. Gilbert gets the victory, same time as Niels Pollitt. Lampert is in 3rd place, and Mark in 4th, and Peter Sagan in 5th. But it's been a great race today. It's been a cold day all round, but I don't reckon it was for the riders. I hope you've enjoyed the coverage of Paris-Roubaix.